Hello, everyone. Kenneth Ship here, the executive director for Ujima Blues Foundation, and I'm really excited to be joined here with Heather Adkins, one of the assistant directors for Ujima Blues Foundation and the event director of BluesGeek 2020, 2019, 2018, and so on and so forth. Really excited to be doing these interviews with the staff and instructors and everyone involved this year to talk about the theme. But rather than just talk about the theme, we're gonna also get to know the people that are gonna be instructing and doing things for us for the event. So I thought this would be a great opportunity to ask Heather some questions, and so you all would all get to know her a little bit better. So first off, hey Heather, how are you doing?
Hi, doing good. I'm Heather Adkins. If you've never met me before, I hail from Huntsville, Alabama. Though I will always be a Nashville girl at heart. I've really lived there for a year, but they sucked me in real hard. And we're gonna talk about 2020 theme this year. 2020 theme.
Ugh,
Great.
I'm not doing it. I'll just put my glasses on. I'm not doing it.
Oh, I don't know where my glasses are. I should probably find those.
All right. But let's we're gonna ask some fun questions to kind of get started. I think all of these are fun. No, that's a lie.
Thanks, great.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it.
So let's do. So you picked superpower. So one of our questions is, what is your ideal superpower?
Okay, I'm going to preface this with, this is going to be an extremely unpopular answer.
Okay.
I decided it would be interesting to have very low-grade mind control powers. And I would also like to add a footnote to this. That usually in my superhero daydreams, I'm usually the villain. So so if you think having low-grade mind control powers is like a really evil intent superpower, that's my qualification. I'm always the villain somehow.
Cool. Mind control powers. Well, I'm not surprised though. I didn't think it was gonna be
anyone who knows me wouldn't be surprised.
I didn't think it was gonna be like ice, fire, or flight, or anything like that. So okay. Okay. What's your favorite thing to do that's not dance related?
I love cooking. I love eating. I love eating. I love food. Trying different recipes. I love cooking for people. I've been told recently one of my love languages is cooking for humans and making them eat. So yeah, cooking is a huge fallback for me.
Yeah. Okay. And then, how did you get into dancing? So that could be blues dancing or just dancing in general.
Initially, my first year of college, a friend of mine said, "Hey, I just heard there's a swing dancing group. Do you want to go with me so I'm not by myself?" And I said, "Okay." And it kind of snowballed from there. And I think that was in 2007. So that was kind of in a very weird era for blues dancing. So I learned how to blues dance, and then I came back a few years later and learned how to blues dance. And
I think that's going to be a common theme for some of these interviews.
It probably will be. It's a shifting landscape, I'll tell you that. Yeah.
Cool. We're going to get into some, not tougher questions, more interesting questions.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
You asked your favorite thing to do. It's not dance related, but what do you do when you're not dancing? So, do you have a day job?
Yes, I have 2 degrees in history, and I'm a certified archivist. What that means is I basically work in the research field and with fancy libraries. So I work at the public library here in the special collections department, and I just do history all day.
Very cool. Do you get to do any blues history with that?
That has definitely been a side gig of sorts. Surprisingly, here in this part of Alabama, there is mostly country, it seems like, so not a ton of actual blues crossover unless it's country blues. I did more research on blues when I was up in Nashville than I have here.
Cool. All right. We're going to dive into some photos real quick. All right.
Okay.
So, brace yourself.
Bracing. I'm ready. Girding myself.
See if it's gonna. You're gonna cooperate with me? Maybe. Oh, there we go. All right. First photo. Let's see. And we're gonna share. Da, 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 da. Mm-hmm.
I'm scared. Oh, Jesus. Yeah, so that was actually from last summer. Huntsville has been celebrating with the rest of the U.S. The 50th anniversary of landing on the moon, and Huntsville did a dance where you could dress up all spacey and go to the dance and enter a costume contest. I would like to know that I was MC for this dance. So my thought was I had to dress up. So what I ended up doing was getting a bunch of Google AIs and going as an alien.
All right, so everyone should be able to see the photo now. So we got the googly. Here we go.
The googly eyes, the metallic green everywhere.
Yeah.
I got a lot of weird looks at the store when I went to the store on the way to the dance. Cool. They were just kind of like, okay, Huntsville's weird, but we're over there. It's okay.
All right, and then we got one more. This is more recent. So I want you to tell it because I know what I was thinking when it happened, but I want you to. So let me pull it up for everybody. All right.
This was at Brickyard Blues this year. Again, I was emceeing, and this was when we were trying to explain how a cutting contest was going to go. And this, if I remember correctly, this may have been right after the comment about trying to get the crowd. I was trying to get the crowd to settle down a little bit, and I told them that the fetus was asleep. I'm 6 months pregnant in this picture. So that would not surprise me if that's why Kenny was reacting this way. But otherwise, I had no idea he was going to follow me onto the floor to explain the contest. So I was a little surprised, and it was a lot going on. So I'm very curious to see what Kenneth was actually thinking here.
Let's see. There we go. Go back to normal. No, I just wanted to be authoritative behind you. That's it.
That's it. I'm not authoritative enough for you. Thanks, Kenny.
And I think in all honesty, I think the rules were kind of getting jumbled up. Not because of you. I just think a lot was going on. So I was like,
yeah.
Okay. Like once you explained, I was gonna like wrangle because no one was going to wrangle people.
I would also like to point out that if y'all have never seen me and Kenneth interact in a room together, that photo is pretty. It's kind of like a golden moment for us where I'm being sassy about something. He's giving like a pretty significant amount of shade in some general direction, and he has a beer. Like, a lot of our conversations end up with those looks in our general directions, and then we always end up at a bar talking about BluesGeek. Like, that is quintessentially us.
Something else is quintessential.
Yeah.
Our love of music. Especially things we grew up in Nashville, but particularly Memphis and Tennessee having a rich soul history. But I know you're even like bigger soul historian than I am. Like, and I know a lot of people probably don't know that about you. So like, how did that get started? How did that curiosity get sparked?
So that's actually a very good question. When I saw that question initially, I was like, oh. I don't know. But when I was thinking back on it, I think when I was growing up in Nashville, I grew up in the South. So it was mostly country music here. But on the rare occasions, I would come across like the soft rock station. That's how I got introduced to the Temptations, so My Girl. And at the time, I really loved the orchestral riff that happens kind of in the bridge area of the song. And I started listening to more Temptations. I made a point of saying I grew up in the South because my parents didn't. My parents are born and raised Detroit. So whenever we went up to Detroit, very long 8-hour car trips with 3 daughters in the backseat. I'm sure my dad still has some sanity left. Anyway, at some point, after you start flipping through enough country channels, you hit the Michigan border. You get closer to Detroit, which is this area. It's interesting because there's a good country music tradition up there too, but you get to a point where you hit these metropolis cities in Michigan and you start tapping into these R&B and classic soul stations up there. It's kind of like when you go to Atlanta and all of a sudden there's like 3 or 4 really great hip hop stations, or when you go to Nashville and there's 20 million country stations. Up in Detroit, there's some really beautifully solid classic soul and R&B stations. And so I got to have slightly broader horizons from that from time to time. And in college, once I discovered I do want to look into this more, I just started to and started looking what developed locally, essentially. And that happened in Memphis. So up in Detroit, you have Motown. That's like the gateway drug for a lot of soul listeners. But in Memphis, you have Stax, which is grittier and more raw and just, I highly encourage y'all to look up the Stax label. It's great.
Like a heavier gospel influence.
You're going to get me on a track that's just not going to stop.
Yeah, we'll be here all day. Yeah.
No, much longer answer than you wanted.
No, that's fantastic. That's great. If I say anything more, we will we'll just keep.
We will completely derail.
Cool. So we're gonna start narrowing closer to Geek. So to get a little bit into like your organizing history, maybe similar to dance history, but how did you get started organizing?
That happened in college as well. I kind of stepped into a power vacuum that a local group asked me to fill. And once I kind of got that under my belt, more groups started asking me my opinion. And turns out, when you're very loud and very opinionated, and you have halfway decent ideas, people want you to contribute a lot. And that's kind of how I fell into a small group of people working on a blues scene in Nashville. So Kenneth and Mary Young and Laura Pinnell, just to name a couple people. And that again kind of snowballed from there because we had this idea about what the blues scene could look like locally. And once we decided, okay, well, local matters a lot locally, but what can we do that we see in the scene nationally that we would like to bring to our local scene or send out from a local scene as well. And that's kind of how Mo Better Blues and Southbound Blues Exchange and eventually BluesGeek got started as well.
Cool. Do you want to dive into that geek part a little bit? So how did Geek
dive into the geek part? Yeah. BluesGeek. It's a long tale. It started out as Mo Better Blues back in 2015. So I didn't realize it at the time last year, but last year was our 5th anniversary, and I was like, how did I let that go? But started out Mo Better Blues. It was very small. I think there were only 4 instructors, 2 of which were Adam and Crystal Wilkerson. One was Megan Adair, and I think Kenneth jumped in for 1 class. It was very early in his instructing career.
I think the first one was your husband Paul and Megan and me, and it would be the next year when it was Adam and Crystal. I think me and Megan and Andrew Bouchard and Josephine Kay might have been. I think that was the following year, and then
maybe I have an entire timeline of this written up for our BluesGeek website. The new Geek site is about to launch, and it's there. Okay. But anyway, so Mo Better Blues, it was under our belts for a couple years, and I think in 2017, Kenneth brought up this idea of no one's talking about the culture, let's talk about the culture. And that's when BluesGeek as a name kind of came up, and it was just a small track component. So there was still Mo Better Blues, where you're learning in a classroom environment and dancing and getting to know people. And then if you were tired or there was a particularly interesting topic, you could attend a community panel under the umbrella of BluesGeek. And then the following year, we were just kind of like, well, Moment of Blues is kind of an appropriative name. We should probably change that. And it just became BluesGeek.
For folks that aren't aware, like that was a name that was given to us. We didn't pick it.
Yeah.
And I didn't want Spike Lee to sue us. You know, there's that. You know, that's a thing.
But when it comes down to it, the name BluesGeek, I think, was just so us and the group of people we were with. Yeah. So we're all geeks at heart, and we geek out about blues. So BluesGeek it seems natural.
Yeah.
That was in, I think, 2018, where it was just BluesGeek as BluesGeek. And then in 2019, we moved to St. Louis, and now we're here. And like I said, I am a geeky enough historian that I actually put a timeline of changes to the event on our soon-to-be newly up website that y'all can go see if you are really interested in everything we've changed over the years.
Nice. Changes over the years. So let's makes me want to think about moments. So we could be here all day on like moments from previous weekends. But is there a favorite moment from a geek in the past?
2018 BluesGeek.
Okay.
The place was the studio on Charlotte Avenue in Nashville, and it was our headliner Kim Massey. She, if you don't know who Kim Massey is, do your work. She's phenomenal. She's local St. Louis, if I remember correctly. Too. Yeah. But she liked the idea of BluesGeek so much that she came to Nashville, which is wonderful. Anyway, so there was a point during the night. This was also my very first MC gig too, so I was waiting for the band break, and 2 hours later, when that band break never happened, and everyone was so fever pitch. Like the 2-hour set she managed to do worked the dance crowd up so much. Like she was doing almost club style music riffing where she would go from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next. And it's not just like traditional blues she was throwing in. She was throwing in things like Fleetwood Mac and Bruno Mars, just mixing and matching these beautiful genres that basically dovetail from each other over time. And at one point, like a soul train broke out, and people had stopped dancing. They were just like mosh pitting the stage. One of my fondest memories of BluesGeek. Like it's, I think we might have some very good photos, if not video, from that as well.
I think a lot of people had good photos from that.
I still get people asking when we're going to bring Kim Massey back.
Hopefully very soon.
Hopefully soon.
What was I going to say? Yeah, because you and me were debating, like, we can't stop, like, I guess we're just going to push everything back, because it was like, I think they would have murdered us. We were supposed to have, like, a
comp prelim, and there were things planned for the break, but things were just happening.
Yeah. And no, they would have murdered us if we had stopped.
You have to make, like, a day of game decision, where it's just like, I'm not stopping Kim Massey. You go talk to her. Oh, I'm not going to talk to her. You go talk to her. And it just ended up being one of those moments where, yeah, it was beautiful. That's all I can say. It was beautiful. Mm-hmm. And I really do hope we can bring Kim back in the future.
All right. I think we're ready to talk about the theme of the weekend.
Yes!
Yeah.
The theme of the weekend!
So you said it earlier in the video, personal authenticity. So why was this theme picked for 2020?
Because of a couple things that worked and a couple of things that didn't work last year. So starting around 2018, 2019, we decided to start going with these themes so people could have goals in mind for where they want their dancing to be at the end of the weekend as compared to the beginning of the weekend. That is how my crazy mind works. And last year we had introduced something called fluid level placement, all the levels learned the same idiom all at the same time, and they could pick their level depending on how much experience they have with an idiom. And that worked probably 80% of the time, and the other 20% people were not used to the idea, so their choice and levels didn't always really match up. And as a result, we got a lot of comments in the survey saying, oh, I felt like this was over my head, or I felt like this person who took this class with me didn't really know the material they were supposed to know. And for those of you who think we don't read the survey comments, this is your cue that I read every single survey comment, because it's your comments that make the next event. Case in point, we're working on authenticity this year. Something really close to my heart is figuring out self-evaluation and leveling. And I think it's important going into a dance workshop weekend to kind of know where you're at with your dancing. And that hopefully will put you in a learning community, your individual level or class, that actually helps you get where you want to be at the end of the weekend. So with the classes, we're working on learning to self-evaluate and set and reach goals. Our instructors seem extremely excited about that. We have a message like, along with class ideas. And as far as like the panels go, talking about musicians and instructors, we know what makes them them, in hopes that if you understand what makes them them, you can start to develop what makes you you. It's all about having a greater consciousness about yourself and your dancing.
With all of that said, what does the theme specifically mean for you?
I've been monologuing quite well so far, but this is the only monologue I have actually down. And it's not that long, I promise.
Okay.
It might be that long. But my issue is sometimes when I start talking, I'm like, I don't know where these words are going. And I wanted a very specific, this is where this answer is going.
Okay.
So,
go ahead.
So personal authenticity. It's taking your past experiences and using them to help you contextualize where you are now, and with that knowledge, planning for the future. So I think you can take that with a bit of a grain of salt, because when you look at your past experiences, there's a tendency to either romanticize what you've been through or have nostalgia glasses of some variety when you're thinking about where you've been. And, that's fine, but if you're looking at it within current context, it changes what your current context is. Your past is never going to change. Your current context changes constantly. So then it's how you choose to apply what you know to move forward that really matters. And when you apply all of this to dance education, it's pretty easy to say, I've learned this, this, and this. But if you're not keeping up with where the current trends are with the community at large, you're not actually keeping up at that moment, and you're not necessarily being true to yourself where you are. And that's why it's important to learn how to self-evaluate. That's why we're emphasizing authenticity so much this year. And if all of that was confusing enough, I do have one quote I rediscovered recently that I think really boils down to the meat of the thing. And I'm gonna be honest, this comes from Boy Meets World. It's the very episode Topanga was in. But it essentially boils down to this. She says, every time you're not true to yourself, the earth weeps. It's a funny comment when she says it, because she's being a hippy dippy little 11-year-old. But if you apply that to dancing in your dance education, when you're not being true to yourself, when you're not looking at your past experience and applying it to your current context and using it towards your future goals in an authentic way specifically, then you're creating a scenario where you're not getting the most out of your dance education. So we're hoping you have a certain amount of context going into registration and picking your level and choosing who you want to be for the weekend. But we're also aiming the weekend to help you develop that as well, to move you forward.
Oh,
and
well. Yeah, it's perfect. I mean, because the reason we definitely want everyone to give their interpretation or thought on it is so that it's not some kind of token buzzword that we're just like, and that personal experience or the personal experience and or interpretation of it, I think will help a lot of people like sift through how they view it. You know, so I'm excited about the tools we're gonna give them during the weekend, but I think it's also gonna be great that they get to like hearing it from a variety of different people is gonna help them like see different ways of viewing this.
Absolutely. Yay!
See, that was great.
So I told him before this, I was like, as the director of this, I feel I should inflict this question on other people, not myself. But I came up with an answer regardless, because that's what you do as a leader, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Anyway.
So this may seem like an obvious question, but maybe you already covered it in the last two. As our like kind of two closing questions. What's one thing you want people to get out of the weekend? Like if you had to give like a bullet statement when they walk out on Sunday night or Monday morning, whenever they end up leaving.
As a bullet statement, something along the lines of, I never knew how to practice this. I never knew how to reach this goal, and now I do. That is what I want to happen. I want you to be able to have the tools you need in your tool belt in order to move you forward in your dance education.
Yeah. That's nice and tight. Nice little bow.
Little bow. We'll see if that bow actually works. I think my comments.
I think it will. Okay, last thing, because we're gonna put together a playlist. It's not like a person authenticity playlist. This is just gonna be people's favorite stuff right now or favorite song throughout time for blues. What did you end up picking?
There is a version of Ain't Misbehavin', sung by Ella Fitzgerald, and it's orchestrated by Count Basie. And if you ask me the album, I will say ask Adam Wilkerson, because anyway, I've been jamming on that for a little over a year now because I've been working really hard on my stride blues idiom. And other than that, I think the song really just appeals to the old romantic in me. It's lush, beautiful, as really beautiful swells and ebb and flow. I will just put it on the background for like an hour, and Paul will come in and be like, Heather, you have got to stop. And so Ain't Misbehavin', Ella Fitzgerald and Count Basie.
Yeah. For those wondering, we'll end up putting that together in a playlist. Try to get all the correct versions for you. So there'll be something that you'll be able to listen to before you get to the event. Hopefully, like our DJs, instructors, staff are all going to add to this. Maybe it might be a yearly thing we do. I don't know, but we're just gonna try it this year and just see how people enjoy it, and hopefully you get some songs you just have never like. Oh, I haven't heard that one before, or
never heard that one, or that version for that matter.
Cool. Heather, when can people register for BluesGeek?
Registration opens February 17th. That evening. We haven't nailed down a time. More than likely, it's going to be 7 o'clock Central Time because I live in the Central Time Zone, which means 8 Eastern and something Mountain Pacific. We'll make sure all of that's announced on Facebook. And our new Geek website is launching soon, and that is where you can register. Seems pretty logical. So February 17th. Mark your calendar. And before you ask, yes, we will have tier pricing out very, very soon. And we'll also have a schedule very, very soon. Super.
Very cool. All right. Heather, thank you for joining me. Definitely appreciate it. Good to catch up for a bit. All right. And we'll see you soon. Bye, everybody.
All right. Bye.